Chapter 1, Effective Interpersonal Communication. Introduction to Interpersonal Communication. The point of communication and communicating with other people is being able to understand oneself and also being able to understand others. It helps us build trust, it helps us foster relationships, and it helps us learn to communicate and learn to more information about ourselves. It's important that we understand how to communicate with others, and the more we communicate, the more we learn. And in our earliest moments, we are learning to communicate from those that are around us, mainly our parents and or siblings. And it's also important for us to reflect on communication. So communication is dependent on our attitudes, beliefs, and values, but it can also be seen with the people that we interact with. So we're exchanging information back and forth and relying on one another, and communicating with ourselves and the way we communicate with others impacts all relationships. Even not speaking is communicating something. Why is communication important? It's our way with fostering relationship with others, our way of understanding others, and our way of understanding ourselves. It's also a way for us to attain what we want in a situation and to also convey what we want in a situation. Communication influences your thinking about yourself and also your thinking about others. So we want to be understood and we want to understand others, and we use communication for that. And then also thinking about how we communicate, maybe like replaying conversations back to ourselves, or reading over a conversation if it's something that is written. Even trying to practice a conversation that you deem is important, or maybe you might have some nervousness about. Through communication, we're able to understand who we are and our self-concept. So it's important to know who we are and what we want and who we want to be, and also how we portray ourselves to the world. Communication is a skill. It is something that can be learned and improved upon. And just not, it can always be improved upon. Communication influences how you learn. You have to think about the concept of topics. You have to think about what is being said. You have to critically think after you hear something or learn something. Also, if you're saying something, you want to make sure that you have actually put the message forward that you want others to receive. You have to think about the audience, and that's basically anybody who is meant to understand the information or meant to receive it. So all those things need to be taken into context. It helps you understand others and also helps you understand yourself and helps other people understand you. It's also important to think about communication in different ways. There's body language, there's facial expressions, there's gestures, there's written information, there is social media information, there is formally written information. So it's not just actually speaking, there's more that goes into it. Communication represents you and your employer. This is for people who might need to add something to a resume or looking for ideas of how to describe themselves. These are some great words to have that are very desirable for any employer. If you're interested more in these words, they are listed on page 16 in the textbook. Communication skills are desired by business and industry. So no matter who you're going to work for or what industry you're going to work in, communication will always be a desired skill. And as I mentioned before, it's something that can be improved upon. And it's always important to make sure you have a full understanding of the oral and written communications that's expected from you at your job, whether it be via email or text message, depending on your company. If you're somebody that is in charge of their social media platforms, and just know that you are representing the company if it's known that you work for a certain company. So you are a reflection of the companies that you work for, the businesses and the business field that you are in. And a lot of the skills that businesses highly want is communication, having a strong work ethic, being able to work with others, taking initiative, and then always being able to analyze. Defining communication. It is important to understand it, control it, foster it, treasure it, share it. We can use it to be heard or to hear, to learn, to grow, to form relationships, to improve our lives, and to understand what is truly important to us. So communication is a process of understanding and sharing meaning. It's a process that's dynamic and ever changing. It's something that is going on while other things are going on, such as receiving, listening, hearing. It's important to make sure you understand the message being conveyed, and you want to make sure people understand the message you are trying to convey. It is something that is shared with others, and communication should have some type of meaning with it. 8 essential components of communication. So these are the parts of the communication that is dynamic and continually ongoing. So a source is a person who creates something, imagines something. It's the person that has this idea and they want to talk about it. There is a message. So the person has a message or an idea or a thought that they want to get out to an audience. It could be one person, it could be a group of people, it could be, on social media, it could be someone at work, it could be a close family member or friend, but basically there is something that they want to tell or put out there, and they want to make sure they produce it the right way and that people receive it the right way. And the right way would just be the way that they want people to understand it or to hear it. They want people to take it in a way that they actually meant it. So it's also important to think about tone of voice, body language, gestures, facial expressions, or even if it's something that's written, the heading of the information, if it's something that should be bullet pointed or if it's something that should be written formally, all of that needs to be taken into context. Channel is the way in which the messages travel between one another or to an audience. So it could be something that's face-to-face, something that's spoken. It could be through email. It could be through text message. It could be through a bulletin post. And a receiver is a person that receives the message from the original source, and they have the duty of analyzing, understanding, and interpreting what the person was trying to convey with their initial message. And this is something that can go back and forth, especially when people are talking or sending information back and forth. Sometimes when one person doesn't understand the information or they're not ready to receive the information, then it can cause an issue or a break in communication. But as I mentioned before, communication is something that can always be improved upon. Continuing with the essential components of communication, next we have is feedback. So that is when someone has taken the time, hopefully, or has been able to just think about a message, mull it over in their minds, or maybe read it over again or listen to it again, or they basically had time to think about what the message is and they have time to respond. So feedback allows for the source, the initial person with the message, to make sure the person actually understood them or to see how people may have taken their message, how it was received, and also gives them information to maybe think about if they want to change their message or if they want to change how they convey themselves in a message. If people didn't take it the correct way, then maybe that's something that they can do with being reflective. When it comes to environment, it's important to think about the environment that a message is conveyed in. It could be the physical environment or the psychological environment. It just depends if it's something that people are actually viewing or if people are, face to face, or if it's something that is written. Context is also important. So the scene needs to already be set. People need to know what the message is and what is being talked about and what it pertains to. People also need to know what is all involved so they could have the full information so they can evaluate it and understand and respond appropriately. And it's also important to think about interference and to decrease interference as much as you can. It could be the actual noise people are making, like the actual sound, or it could be noise as in there are things that might be distracting somebody. If the person is hungry when they receive the message, they might not fully listen, they might rush through it, or they just might not be able to understand it fully because they're hungry. Noise is anything that can interrupt a message that is taking away from the conversation or from a person actually receiving a message, even if it's just reading a message. Maybe they're distracted by their kid, or maybe they are getting off work soon and they're excited about something. So all of these things need to be taken into context when it comes to encoding and decoding and understanding a message. This is a great way of understanding communication. Just know it's transactional. So basically two people are going back and forth, or at least two people are going back and forth. So as you can see, there's a source and then the receiver, and then the source of something back, and then the receiver. So two people can be sources. Two people can also be a receiver. Make sure you understand the context and the environment. And then also think about the channels or the way information is being communicated. Make sure there's feedback and make sure there's messaging actually coming across, and then take interference into context. Another way of looking at communication would be using the constructivist model. And basically, they want to focus on the negotiated meaning. So they want to focus on exactly how people are getting their point across, like what modes of communication the people used, if the appropriate words were used, thinking about the facial expressions, the gestures, the tone of voice, understanding if it was, or actually analyzing and or understanding if it was an appropriate way or the right way of conveying something, making sure people have common ground or are able to come to an understanding even if they don't agree, and also making sure people are able to understand like what took place during the communication. So basically they're focusing on the type of communication and how the communication is going, while also focusing on how people are getting that meaning across. Communication is transactional. It is something that goes back and forth. And while communicating with somebody, it is important to think about the background, experiences the person may have had, language might be a part of it, the culture that you're either talking to or part of. There's also making sure people understand the meaning. So sometimes people use slang, sometimes people use words in a different way, or certain words have more than one meaning. So making sure that people understand what is being conveyed and how it is. Sometimes people will define a topic they want to discuss, especially during a debate, so that way people know like what the goal is. And just knowing that it's okay to continue to learn, it's okay to continue to improve, and it's okay to ask questions. Communication is a process that goes on, and it's also something that's irreversible. So once something is said or put out there, it cannot be taken back. And just know that it can leave an impact, whether good or bad, on someone's life or job or situation or understanding of something. A professional communicator is prepared. So when it comes to a speech or teaching or running a company or running a meeting, it is important that the person is prepared. They know the responsibilities, they know what the meeting is about, and they're able to convey it in a way that everyone will understand what is going on, or they'll give opportunity for people to ask questions if it's something that they don't fully understand. So it's important to be organized, to be clear and concise, and also to be on time. The professional communicator is ethical. So when it comes to communicating and putting your name behind something, or your company, or maybe your family, or those that you want to represent, it's important to be ethical. Of course, usually with messaging, people aren't trying to offend anyone. At least, hopefully, that's the point. Do not offend anyone. But just to stick to the facts, Be honest, tell the truth, convey the message best they can, and if there's something that they need to correct or edit or change that the company might want or that a family member might need changed or altered, then that's something that they can think about and take into context. But it's very important that this person is ethical. If it's something that is factual, maybe they're educating an audience about a certain topic, it's important that they use peer-reviewed sources, that they use peer-reviewed articles or journals. That is just not something that they lie about, or they're not trying to trick people with their messaging. So basically, just it's important as a professional to keep it ethical. Also, make sure it's correct if there's rules of conduct, that there's codes of conduct or processes that are important to that job, just to make sure people understand what's expected of them. It mentions being egalitarian, and that's basically believing in basic equality. So, of course, when it comes to being professional or for work, you want people to feel included and invited. That's just good for business. It's good for people, as far as feeling good. It's good for improving oneself. It's good as with improving just ways of communicating and having various experiences. Because people like to grow and that will help a company grow. Also, it's okay to be passionate about a topic if it's something the person is passionate about, but they don't want to shout out the crowd unless that's something that is part of whatever they are doing. But people want to be composed. People want to be professional. They want to be somebody that people can ask questions to. They want to be liked and they want to be professional. It's just good to basically treat others how you want to be treated. And that's the golden rule that we're taught at a very young age. But you also want to take that into adulthood.